各位，很多人已经隐约感觉到，中国正在发生一些说不清但不对劲的变化。阿拉斯泰尔·库鲁克这一位长期观察中美结构关系的研究者，用一种极为克制的说法点出了关键：影响力正在改变方向。表面上，人们仍在谈论制造业、人工智能、价格波动这些具体的话题，但在舆论与媒体叙事中，它们往往被拆分成彼此无关的碎片，很少会放进同一套结构坐标里面重新理解。如果继续沿用旧的参照体系，很多变化只会显得反常，却看不清它们真正指向哪里。我个人觉得，如果从中国的角度出发，就会发现中国与西方正在沿着两条明显不同的路径前进。在通胀压力持续存在的背景下，西方经济越来越依赖金融回报与资产定价来维持增长的叙事，技术往往被纳入资本循环还有估值逻辑之中，而中国内部的重点则放在制造体系本身，通过较低的门槛、更大规模的技术扩散，把自动化、流程优化和数字工具陷入到大量的产业环节。这里的人工智能并不急于证明领先性，而更像是一种基础的工具，被用来降低单位成本，提高交付稳定性。这不是效率高低的比较，而是两种结构选择的超扬分化，而核心矛盾因此变得清晰。一边是高度的金融化，依赖资本预期和资产价格维持动能的体系，另一边则是制造密度为基础，通过工业级技术扩散不断压缩成本的体系。从表面上来看，前者在追逐前沿的突破和技术的话语权，而后者似乎只是在做低阶的应用。而在结构层面，正是这一种广泛、低成本、可复制的部署方式，正在重塑价格体系与产业的位置。当一方长期承受着通胀的压力，而另一方逐步进入通缩区间，竞争事实上已经不再发生在同一个价格层级或者同一个赛道上，这也是许多判断频繁失准的根源。而我们放到更长周期看，中国的结构优势并不集中于某一项的单点技术，而是体现在制造、技术与成本机制的协同运转上。当外部人习惯用技术领先或者制度标签来理解变化，那更值得追问的是，这一种结构是否会继续向外溢出呢？并且迫使其他体系重新调整自身的路径。而下一步真正重要的变量，不是态度或者立场，而是这一种结构张力将如何被消化和回应。让我们看一下视频。
About the huge changes that are taking place in China.
Please.
And that what is happening is a sense we're in really a Thucydides moment, which is by which I mean that until now, the United States and the West has considered that it had huge leverage over China. And what is happening in this period has been that actually China now has the leverage over the West. And that consists of a number of things that China understood from what they've seen with Russia, that they had to not simply become dependent on the West for the import of goods. They had to do the opposite. They had to be self-sufficient. They had to build out industrially. They had to change the whole economy to being a manufacturing industrial economy. This is the opposite of what happened in most of Southeast Asia. In other words, the economy, the market, unlike the West, where the market rules the state, there the state rules the market in the national interest. And so they have built a huge industrial complex. The second thing that they've done is they're managing AI in a completely different way from that of America. The AI here is not about if you like, a militarized AI as it is in the US with Palantir and so on. It is here something that is simpler and is diffused throughout the economy, the manufacturing economy, in a way which is not really AI, but it is AI, but it's basically bringing automation, bringing technology, bringing robots into industry. And it's had a huge impact here. Of course, there are some difficulties with it because there are jobs losses in China too. And you see there's a certain, slowdown on the streets. There's a certain cooling of the economy, although people are being able to move to other economies. But one big manufacturer here in China, domestic manufacturer, told me typically, he says, in his companies, in his business, which used to a year ago employ 2,000 people, it's down to 200 now. And the costs of production are much reduced. In fact, what is happening is that China is in price deflation at the same time that America and Europe is in price inflation. And that poses a huge strategic problem, I believe, for us, because with these changes, industrial changes, there is almost nothing that China needs from the West, apart from aircraft, from chips, and a few advanced tools and technical items. But by and large, it doesn't. It's become self-sufficient, slightly like Russia did earlier. And becoming self-sufficient in this way means that they are not subject to pressures. They have, as I say, AI that has changed. They are so competitive that effectively it's impossible now, I would say, for the West, with its inflation and China's deflation, if you like, to sell their products into China in the future. Effectively, China is out of the equation. They don't need to buy, and it's not competitive. We are no longer competitive against China at these levels where it has completely changed. And they've changed it in another way, which is just as important, which the West can't match either. Everything here is done through, if you like, this financial ecosystem, a huge ecosystem of finance, which is worked with WeChat or Alipay. And you have a billion Chinese conducting business, buying and selling on WeChat, 1 million, and on Alipay too. And all of this is now absorbing, if you like, the diffusion of AI through to this element. And the rare earths was just an example that China actually had to leverage completely, as they do in many areas, almost all of these areas. And as I say, the key thing is that how would he do this when actually the Chinese price level is deflating and the competitiveness of industry is going through a really tectonic change here. As I say, there's almost nothing that would be competitive in China at the moment. And I've been talking to, people, a person here who has many manufacturing firms throughout the country as well as in Africa, and he can see this change. And the AI has been used completely differently. Whereas in America, AI is sort of geared to military structures and needs and to control and targeting and identifying targets. I mean, here it is something that has been diffused throughout industry at a lower level of AI. I mean, it's basically automation and robots and robotics, but it is widespread across the whole industry. So they never did what we did, either have financialized the economy it is strictly an economy that manufactures and produces things, and it doesn't have that financialized world which has led to this bifurcation of our economies. We have the economy which is soaring in the stock market, which is tied to the finance world, and the other economy of ordinary people, which is going dropping and dropping and dropping. I saw the statistics for Black Friday that actually output, actual goods sold, was 1% down, prices were 7% up. I mean, this is a crisis, a structural crisis the West had. And here in China, it's viewed that the West has completely gone the wrong direction on AI, moving to this AI, which they hope will lead to AGI, the artificial general intelligence, i.e. human intelligence, which may be a long time off. Now, it'll be very difficult for the United States to accept the change that has taken place in China in this period. This, if you like, avoidance of the dollar trap, the establishment of their own financial ecosystem, and these open source AI systems, which they are bringing into play in industry and also in the financial sphere. Because, as I say, the AI is being deployed in things like WeChat or Alipay, so you can do anything and buy anything through these technical apps. And this is going to spread elsewhere. We are well behind in these sort of systems. The whole of the consumer body of 1.4 billion here is tied in. 1 billion on one of those apps alone, which does all sorts of things. And the West is sort of focused on something different, building these mega, if you like, data stores. And that is the other thing that China has the great advantage, and they point this out to me, is that in China, I mean, they have the energy. They don't have the problem of energy for these big, if you like, mega data centers. They have electricity, and they have that from various sources, and they are actually diminishing their requirements for oil. At the moment, they do take a large amount of oil, but 50% of that oil is used for transport, transporting goods, transport generally, transport in the economy. Now, what they suggest is that is going through innovation very fast. Already, all of the motorcycles, all of the cars here are electric. They think their needs for oil are going to be much reduced. They're going to be less dependent on oil as a source of energy, and they have other things coming on play. They have also new ideas about energy. They are going for fusion. They hope that will nuclear fusion. They hope that they have a project that is up and running on nuclear fusion, and they have also other systems, a non-nuclear system for generating electricity. It's too complicated for me to grasp, but it's a thorium system. And these things, they believe, are going to change the energy balance too, but in China's favor. Now, and again, I'm saying I think this is going to be very hard, because the consequences for Europe, for America, I mean, are going to be particularly dire, because we are putting so much money into our style of AI. And I think the Chinese don't believe that it will be sustained. Huge, I mean, trillions are going into AI in a bid to achieve AI dominance. And the Chinese are doing open source, spreading theirs almost no cost. It is being spread, it's being used widely. People are turning to the Chinese model of AI, and they think that that the AI in the United States is a big bubble and will never produce the revenues. They will produce revenues because theirs is linked into this financial ecosphere, and that they can bring the revenues of the financial sphere into AI so that the AI will be self-sufficient, will be sustainable because it is producing cash flows and is producing a revenue for the future. So they're very confident. There are problems, as I say, they're affected by AI. The prices are going down. They tell me, the industrialists tell me, the people are getting jobs. It's not perfect, but it is working. The killer really is the fact that there's price deflation here and price inflation in the West. How are we going to be competitive? How can we have leverage in that condition? I think it seems to me to be a really striking sort of event, striking condition that exists here. The reaction, of course, probably in the United States, well, we will have to do more to try and contain China and to stop it and to deal with it so that they don't become dominant. What I'm saying is they've become dominant. They have the leverage, major leverage over us.